Yo, 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 welcome to another episode of The Boy. What's up? Coming to you live from the Shop Studios in Duval County, Jacksonville, or Duval County, Florida, in Jacksonville. We have Seprock Beats. Hold on one second.
Never seen, only heard.
Move this stuff around here. That's right. Yes, indeed. Welcome. Hopefully you are having a great week so far. Another Tuesday means another episode of The Boyd. So today, ad title, I don't really know. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world. I don't know. Nothing's really poking out in my brain right now that we haven't already talked about a little bit. Andrew Yang, I hear, no longer in the running. Makes sense. Turnout wasn't really big with him. I thought it was coming on sort of strong. He had like sort of a, pardon me, viral popularity at first, sort of like some meme energy, if you will, if that's even a thing. But yeah, so I mean that didn't really carry him past the initial phases. I think it was a little bit gimmicky, to be honest with you. I know I had some folks jump on in the past who were Andrew Yang fans. Look, his UBI thing sounds cool at first, but I mean, Milton Friedman talked about that in like the 70s. Milton Friedman, I mean, the dude's passed away already, so he can't defend himself. But if he were here today, I would love to sit down and have a public discussion with him about some stuff, because I think anyway, he was heralded during the 80s. God, by the way, one of the first investments I need, either a studio or at least a better chair. This chair, people who have sat in this chair can attest to how terrible this chair is. Yo, what's up, Superfan Chris? What is happening, sir? Welcome to the show. And we also have someone else on the show. So tonight is the last night that the old computer will be used for the show. Figuring out a new solution. So Superfan Kate has donated a computer. I haven't got it to work yet, but I'm working on it. Got some folks joining us from on Facebook. By the way, Facebook's really glitchy and weird. I don't know. Live chat on YouTube works better. Oh, all our Facebook people practically. There's one person still on. Practically everyone jumped off. Maybe they're not failing over, but jumping up to the YouTube feed, because that is actually where it's at. So Yang, yeah, I mean, UBI, Universal Basic Income, not gonna cut it, not going to counteract the forces of labor and capital relation contradictions. The fact that there is no what's it called, alternative to wage labor if you don't have resources already. So if you don't get born with either money or tools or skills, or I don't know, I mean, if you're not born with these things, you can eke your way through, don't get me wrong, but there's some people that can't eke their way through. So what do you do about that in a system that the solution is that basically they die off, and cull themselves from the population? That's sort of like, I mean, not really a real solution, though that is the logical conclusion to a lot of arguments that float around. So put that in the air. So when somebody puts out like some idea about something, follow it to its logical conclusion. So the thing is, if somebody's born with no resources and know nothing, they know nothing about the world that's ever getting more and more complex all around us. And they don't have these things. The only thing they can do is some kind of wage labor. I mean, in our current paradigm. So with there not being a choice other than, I mean, if there was a choice, like if there were the public commons that you could at least put your name in, maybe win a acreage plot and maybe some tools and go work the field. Hey, maybe also tell you what, on the reciprocal point, what if there was some kind of grant program to help you buy tools of your trade and some tutelage therein? There were grants in the past. I mean, there may be some grants available now. I don't know that they've really kept up with inflation. Maybe somebody knows out there in the world. If you happen to know, put it in the live chat. Let's see, what do we got here? Yeah, we got one. Got a couple folks popping in and out. I don't know if it's my connection or other people's connection. Sometimes connections will glitchy. But anyway, I don't know. There's a lot to the onion, a lot of layers to the onion. Andrew Yang bowing out. I could see that coming. I mean, there's no way it would have worked. And really he talked a lot about UBI. He talked a lot about the problems that the country is facing, and I agree with him a lot about automation and a lot of technology that will cause physical labor to be relatively obsolete. So, but I mean, these are neat that Yang is talking about this sort of vocally, but this is stuff that, that's old news. I mean, that's stuff that was talked about by Karl Marx. That's what shook up stuff back with Marx. That's the kind of stuff that, I mean, even to some degree, Adam Smith talks about this, about how laborers will eventually be specialized in doing component labor of a special type. Like, for instance, instead of knowing how to make a chair, they know how to make a leg of a chair. So that skill to know how to make not a full chair, but just the leg of chairs is not so transferable to other things. So there's some stuff you can transfer it to, but then you become more and more specialist. And that's a risk. And then you also have automation. So even in 1776, there was some starts to, technology, new technologies for, for farming and for manufacturing, for sewing, textile manufacture. That kind of thing was a big deal. So you start to see, as you start to see machine use start to become more and more prevalent, you start to see people like Karl Marx basically taking what Adam Smith is talking about in the Wealth of Nations and bringing it further down to its logical conclusion, saying, look, this stuff's eventually going to be automated. What are we going to do about that? We need to figure this out. Capitalism is going to be able to someday, I mean, nobody could predict exactly when. I mean, I think we're pretty damn close, if not, but supposedly the prediction is that capitalism will produce so much, be able to produce such bounty that the all of humanity can be sustained by the production capacity of capitalism, or what we learn through capitalism. And then during some utopian event, either, and I'm not even trying to be facetious or a jerk about it. So, I mean, people call me a Marxist. So here I am talking about this utopian idea, right? It's some kind of change. Either, I mean, everybody so far has tried to do this sort of thing by forcing upon some kind of grand vision, some kind of what they would call vanguard style socialism or communism or something, right? Mao and Stalin and these kind of people. But where is it going with this? What's up, Dale? Thanks for jumping it. Damn, we got 4 people suddenly. I'm sitting here deep in thought. Next thing I know, look up. I got Superfan Dale tuning in, and we got 4 very special people in the billions of people on this earth. What was I saying? I don't remember. Oh, but anyway, contradictions, automation, it's coming. So what do we do, right? So the utopian idea was that we have a thought process that we whereby we understand that we can produce enough to help us all in order to, all live together on this earth. So there will be a point where we can all just do that. Now they've always tried, the recent, I guess recent, or all the attempts at this socializing or creating the communal society have been done through some authoritarian force. And I think there's a way to do it through a sort of cultural change, but it's going to be like a slow soak. It takes a while to make major changes happen. I mean, the change from it's okay to be racist openly. In fact, there's federal laws mandating racism to it's not okay to be racist, at least not in public. And you can lose your job for saying even racist jokes, and not even acting in a racist capacity whereby you are using a power over someone else based on race to hinder or somehow exclude someone. Not even that. Like, let's say you said something about black people or something, like about, I don't know, some stupid joke. And then you come back. I mean, it's happened before where someone says something stupid and then they got like, they board a plane, and then when they land, they get fired because their stupid joke went viral and stupid crap. Things like that. Dang it. Anyway, I can't remember where I was going with that. I just remember there was a story about that was sort of silly. I don't remember. Dang it. Or I don't know. Let's say you make something about you make a joke and then next thing you know, you get fired. Stuff like that. Crazy stuff. I don't know. Even that becomes this sort of authoritarian idea that if you say something that isn't, oh yes, a cultural change. So even a joke of some sort that wasn't meant to harm or exclude someone, etc., blah blah blah, in jest, is something that can cause like this backlash, and the cultural change happened in a matter of decades. So what I'm saying is that there is a potential for slow soak change, cultural change, that could lead to Star Trek style utopian automated space luxury. You know what I'm saying? Like utopian weird, not weird, but like, yeah, like we're out in space, like learning about the galaxy and stuff like that. I mean, the aliens probably, if there is such a life form that is capable of being in contact with us anyway, it's probably capable of seeing how reckless we are as an organism. I mean, I've said multiple times how humans as a whole, like, collectively aren't any smarter than fungus, like Joe Rogan has compared humanity to, and I agree with him. That we're no different than fungus on a piece of bread, and eventually we're going to consume that bread, and there will be nowhere for the rest of the fungus to live, and then we will all perish together, dead on a piece of what was bread once, a husk of our remains. Yeah, I mean, that's our current path right now until we have a cultural awakening. It truly has to be a collective cultural awakening, where we are working together as a species. Until then, we literally are going to be like fungus and destroy the world, and we'll die with it. Well, maybe, I mean, the rock of the husk of Earth will still remain, and perhaps there will be life forms that go along past humanity, which I don't doubt. But we will perish if we don't figure some shit out, is all I'm saying. It's all I'm saying. All right. In the dust of this planet. Yes, take some notes. In the dust of this planet. I'll have to take that out. Need. Probably want to. Well, I mean, should. I need to anyway. Thank you for the suggestion. And for the folks on Facebook, if you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a live chat on YouTube. If you did leave, let me see if we left any comments on Facebook. Facebook folks, if you did leave any comments, Facebook's super glitchy. And I usually don't get any. Yeah, I can't even see if there's comments. So jump over to the YouTube side of things, and it's a little bit less glitchy, and you can jump on the live chat and tell everybody in the world, well, the other 4 people that are watching, what you think about what is going on. You know, this notion that we borrow the earth from our children is something that's lost on a lot of people in this current contemporary paradigm. I don't know if that's possible to change in a time frame fast enough to make the changes necessary. I don't know. You know what? You tell me. You tell me. You know, and I've talked about this before. I don't want to sound like I'm encouraging something, so I can't talk about it too much. But I think in the midst of this suicide epidemic and all these people feeling hopeless largely because of the alienation due to capitalism and capitalist reality. But that aside, you know, in the despair and hopelessness, people will start turning towards laying their bodies upon the gears of the machine, which I didn't coin that phrase, but some activist, I don't remember, I could probably look it up later. Anyway, people are going to do that. They're going to be like, you know what? I don't have anything else to live for. I'm going to go do this thing instead of just, or whatever they do. Maybe not. Maybe they're just like, I'm too depressed to do anything. There was some video I didn't watch, but it was titled something like too depressed for revolution. I mean, I don't know. There was a time when like there was a fighting spirit and there was like, no, we're going to fight. There's revolution. And it's almost like people just like lay down and just die. It's like, I heard this story about this dog that went out to go take a shit or something, right? This dog owner lets the dog go to the backyard and go poop. And the dog is missing. And she can't figure out where the dog is. Like, where's this dog run off to? And it turns out that this dog has this weird habit. And this is at night, by the way. Let the dog out at night. It's a black dog, goes out at night, pitch black in the backyard. Blah, blah. Can't find the dog. Oh, my God. What's going on? Calling the dog. Nothing's happening. Turns out when this dog gets a piece of poop stuck on its butt or something like that, you know, dogs have some issues sometimes. TMI. Sorry, but it's crucial to the story. This dog has a thing on its butt, and it does a thing where it like lays down like zombie style, like just froze. And doesn't move until someone helps it with the thing that's stuck on its fur. Weird, right? Some kind of thing. Maybe you guys have neat animal stories about quirky animal hijinks as such, which will then further reinforce this idea that this notion that how kooky would that be in like the wild if this dog was like surviving out in the woods, out in the wilderness, against the world, against the elements, trying to find its way. Would it, like, if it was pooping and it got some poop on its fur, would it like lay down and be like, I'm helpless to the world? Like, how long would it lay there on the forest floor in leaf litter while poop was attached to its butt fur? You know what I mean? I mean, I feel like the modern people is sort of like that. But I also feel like the fact that I'm pointing it out and the fact that someone might be like, you know what, James is right. We are like the dog with the poop on its butt. We need to get up and we need to get mad about this stuff and not lay on the ground and start doing something. Then suddenly I'm inciting riots and revolution. I'm just saying, I don't know. It's just, look, all it sounds like is, as I talk about this stuff, as we're bitching about a situation and a system that is doing some crazy stuff to the planet, crazy stuff to our brothers and sisters, to our society. I'm not some special person who came up with this stuff. It's been talked about for decades. Some of our most notable leaders and orators and public figures have talked about some of these contradictions and some of these things and have met untimely deaths, likely because of it. There's a lot of folks trying to protect what the system what allows. For instance, remember when chattel slavery was allowed, there were people who wanted to protect the institution, for the institution allowed them to have stuff that they wouldn't have without the institution. So slavery allowed slave owners, plantation owners to have these big assets that meant something. You probably use your slaves as collateral, take a loan against them if you wanted to. You could breed slaves and blah, blah. You know what I mean? You get all manner of psychopathic type stuff, whatever. I mean, if you think about the reality of what was going on, it behooves a certain group of people to maintain that system. When we look at wage slavery, Frederick Douglass says to us both, he was once a slave and then let into the world of wage slavery. What is wage slavery? In fact, I was asked this in a facetious manner today on one of these, it's like American Freedom or Liberty, American Liberty Foundation or something. I don't know. I troll these stupid places all the time. And they're talking something. I don't remember what they were talking about. Whatever it was, I was trolling them, and this lady was asking about what is wage slavery. And basically, it amounts to, if your existence depends on you taking upon a wage or salary to survive, then you are in a system or circumstance of wage slavery. You have no choice but to enter into salary or wages. And there was also a further component about basically that the need is immediate and the time frame is immediate. So the other thing that we always they are the people that don't really think about material reality. The thing that they don't talk about is that time is of the essence. Time is of the essence. What does that mean? That means your rent is due next week. That means your mortgage is due last Monday. Your kids' tuition for something was due already, or you have to get groceries because your kids keep pooping out the food you fed them already. Like something weird about that. And for some reason, you got to keep feeding them more. And you yourself feel this need to eat and consume. And this type of thing happens on a regular basis. So time is of the essence. So you can't just suddenly pop out of the womb and go start a business. So there's a fantasy idea that there's an alternative to being exploited through wages or salary by another person. So anyway, he even says, comparing chattel slavery to wage slavery, that in his experience, it demonstrates that there is a slavery of wages only a little less galling than that of chattel slavery, and it must go with the other. So that is the reality that we're in, that there is no alternative to seeking this wage. And when you have a situation where you have a captive bunch of people have no alternative, then the wages by default get depressed. And so if they're by default depressed, then it's not a free market, it's a captive market. So on one hand, there's a free market to some degree, a free market in products, a free market in businesses buying each other out, a free market in stock share prices and things like that. But the labor market is a captive market, especially if you are unskilled. So the unskilled labor market is a captive market. If they were to open up the commons and say, look, you can put your name in for some acreage and go eke it out in some acreage, that would deplete the labor force to a degree where now there's at least a more true defined labor force as far as who's willing to play the wage game and salary game to do this. And then you could say that people were being paid fairly for their market wage, right? Or for what they would fetch, quote unquote, fetch in the labor market. But right now people are captive and there's no alternative to that. So that's something that needs to be addressed. Yang didn't address that. And in fact, Bernie doesn't address that. So really, like, for me, it's crazy that people think Bernie's too far to the left, because, like, to me, Bernie's not left enough. He's not talking specifically yet about labor and capital relations, but he really can't. He has to warm the oven up just by asking, hey, instead of letting our brothers and sisters die, what if we have a national health care plan? What if there's national health insurance, not national health, all doctors work for the government? That's not what he's saying, right? If people but that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with hyperbolic rhetoric. We're dealing with exaggerated stuff. And but if everyone has health insurance, then we're going to turn into Venezuela. We're not going to turn into Venezuela. It's not, it's like, if you think at all that it matters, like, that differences matter. There's so many things that are so different between these two countries. It's like your DNA is what, like 98% the same as chimpanzees. Does 2% differ? Does that difference matter? It's 98% the same. Does it matter? There's definitely more than 98% difference between Venezuela and the United States. So when people say, oh, Bernie Sanders is going to turn United States into Venezuela, it's like saying that the 2% between a chimpanzee and a human being is negligible, right? That's how dumb of a, I hate to say it, but that's how dumb that kind of talking point, that's how dumbed down people are when they sort of buy into these talking points, because the discussion has moved so far away from the reality of what is really happening. Number one, what Bernie's asking for and what he is proposing, versus this sort of crazy, like, made up caricature of this thing that Fox News and Breitbart and even the mainstream media have concocted about it. So I don't know. It's a weird situation we're in. There's a lot of people that would like to uphold the wage slavery system, and they have a lot to maintain. They have a lot to gain from keeping that system. There's a lot of people who stand to not even gain, but maintain if we keep the private health insurance as the only mandate. Because if we pool it as a governmental entity, or incentivize and otherwise incentivize or disincentivize, incentivize nonprofits or disincentivize profit making off of healthcare, we can move some things around that way, possibly. But there needs to be a better solution. The fact that someone's using your health problem as a way to make profit is a little bit like extortion. You know what I mean? And the thing is, it's like you could say, well, why don't you come up with a cure yourself? And like, yeah, it's sort of snide and funny. But the thing is, a lot of the research that's done by major pharmaceuticals for major problems facing society are funded. The research grants, et cetera, are funded by by the government, by the taxpayers. So in essence, they are finding their own cures. They're just not able to reap the profits. They don't have the capital to get the attorneys and patent lawyers necessary to be able to reap the benefits of the taxpayer funded research. So those are the problems that we're facing, you know what I mean? And this divide of them and us and the left, right, Democrat, this whole crap. It's all concocted to move the conversation away from this simple reality that people are making money off of each other, and they want to make sure that it stays that way. Whereas we could come up with a collective system where we don't have to necessarily have government central control of everything, but we could have a risk pool. Right, we could have a nationalized risk pool that helps pay for health insurance. Now, do you think people are purposely going to go break their arms more often to misuse the system? Or do some people might? I mean, I don't know. Do you think people are going to get free surgery for fun? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, some people think about how people abuse a healthcare system, and I'm sure there are ways to do it. But if there are ways via fraud, waste, and abuse to screw with the system, then hopefully we can create the vectors by which we can take your suggestions and make changes, or you can run for some type of office or something within the government, because the government is us. It is not a monster that lives in a cave. It is us. Run for a fucking office. All right, very good. We got some stuff. We got some folks chiming in on the chat. If you are in Facebook world, it is way glitchy if you are in fact leaving a comment or anything like that. So jump on to the YouTube live chat. Doesn't look like anyone left a comment on Facebook anyway, but welcome. Looks like one person, got a few people on YouTube, and we got Michael W. What is up? Michael Weingardner, welcome back to the show. You've pretty much reached super fan status, so what is up? I'm going to be passing the Teen Center off soon. Going to start a nonprofit that, among other things, will offer job training, financial literacy programs, etc. I want to focus on cooperative building. Very cool. Building cooperatives, just training more cogs for the machine. Indeed. So creating cooperative structures, I think, is one true way of changing the, basically you're changing the culture, number one. You're changing the landscape of what it is out in the world as far as options, and what does it take? It takes a selfless individual that was willing to shed the greed of being able to basically take advantage of the wage system. And basically it's like having a child, raising a child and bringing it up into the earth and then letting it go and letting it live its life. And whether it calls you on your birthday or whether he or she does anything nice to you ever again, you still love the kid and whatever. And you know what? It's having a great life. Imagine you created this thing, and I want to create a foundation that helps create cooperatives. And you know what? If you're a multi-billionaire or millionaire or whoever, I don't care. I want to make it like crowdfunded. It could be like Patreon. Anyway, if you're a major funder or donor or whatever of this cooperative, you can have a plaque. There'll be a big wall with people's names, and the more money you donated, the more like eye level your name will be, and then like, whatever. I don't know. I think there are ways to fund things if you tell the story right, and if you give people the credit and recognition that they were part of something. I think they'll do it. It'll be like sort of Patreon-esque in its way. I don't want to use Patreon because it is the actual thing, like a generic crowdfunding type of system. I think if once I build it, they will come, or once you build it, Michael, they will come. And so put something like that together, steal that idea, run with it. Even if you make one and I make one, if there's like a million of them, I don't care. Let's all make one. What that will do is change the landscape of labor and capital relations. The more cooperatives there are, the more chances people will get a chance to join organizations where they will have some level of democratic control over their pay. They will also have equity in the place that they work over time. So as they work there over time, they will have a larger stake in that company. So shares of dividends will go to them. Shares of the company ownership will go to them. They can sell these shares back and get a big chunk of cash, or they can keep the shares and live off, some dividend earnings therein. There's a lot of different ways that this could pan out. It would change the way that people deal with money, that people will deal with their time. It will change family. It will change society. It will change government. What it will do is it will give people time back. What would you do with time if you didn't have to spend massive majority of your time scratching out a living? How much good would you do for other people? Now, some people would just waste it all on themselves. Don't get me wrong. There are a bunch of selfish people just waste it on themselves. But we know at the end of the day, these people will then be alone when the winter comes. Who will they huddle with? They didn't think that far. They'll find their time. And I think that will change society. People will see when you don't have your brothers and sisters around anymore because no one wants to be around you. And I don't even understand how they're making it now, but whatever. I mean, they'll still make it. I mean, they'll still be able to find a way to make it. It's just I don't know. I think some people may have more choice to not have to deal with them. Some people have to spend so much time at work in places other than where they would really want to be with their time, that if they had their time back and didn't have to spend it around those people, and spend it around people and nature and things that they do care about, the world in general will be a better place because there'll be more people within nature to make sure people aren't screwing up nature. There'll be more people who are helping children in the schools because there'll be more volunteers for the schools. There'll be more people helping hospitals because there's more volunteers for the hospital. People will be doing the things that they love with their free time that they will now have because labor and capital relations have changed. We said it is not okay to buy someone. It is not okay to rent someone. It is not okay to use people as commodities, that we will use people as partners from now on. That is all it is. I mean, if we change that fundamental thing, cultural thing, it's really a cultural thing. If we change that, we can change, I mean, so many things. I'm telling you, so many things will change off of that one thing. Because why? Because it will give people their time back. All right, so let's see what else we got. Superfan Chris says cooperatives are very much needed. What stage are you at right now on this movement? Michael says, I want to run the nonprofit as a cooperative as well, instead of the top-down hierarchy like most businesses and nonprofits alike are structured. No doubt. I think that the cooperative structure could work. Professor Michael, Richard Wolff. Look him up. Lots of work. He's published pamphlets and other tutorials and seminars and other things about cooperatives. And you basically just add water and they got you set up. All right. So Michael says, right now I'm building a network pool, gathering interested partners. I'm literally already doing some of the work that the nonprofit will be doing during my personal time with his mobile food pantry. Yes, we need to talk indeed. And yes, indeed. Yes, we can make some moves, change the world, all of those things. And I think A lot of that starts with changing capital and labor relations via cooperatives. So all of the other charities, whatever charities there are, they're probably fleecing the people. I don't trust charities anymore. Please, if you know of a charity that's trustworthy, go ahead and name it. And then at least people will, know it's trustworthy, I guess. But I just don't trust stuff anymore. And so it's, unless they have public documents, and what charity publishes their internal finances. I don't know. Is there one that publishes their internal finances? I doubt it. I guess I'm just going to have to make one someday that will. But I mean, when that time comes, that time will come. But anyway, Yang out. He's not doing enough anyway. It's not changing. The UBI is not changing anything. It was a ruse. At least Bernie's taking us in the right direction. Hopefully Bernie will, the whole establishment's against him. If you don't like how things are, if you don't like the establishment, and you don't like, you just, you feel like that we should do better as a society, Bernie's the way to go. All these other people, I don't even know who even are these people. Why do they exist right now? They are not, like, come on. You guys probably know people in your sphere of influence that would be better candidates than Joe Biden, Amy Klobuchar, Pete Buttigieg, whatever. They would all be better candidates. Bernie is old. He's already old. That's already a tough candidate to have. He's like 78 years old or something, I think. So, that becomes an issue, because I've heard that a lot of people use that against him. And I don't know if it's ageist or not. You can't force people to vote again, like, oh, hey, you can't not vote for him because of his age. Just like, you can't not hire this guy because he's too old or something. So you can't do that with voters. So I don't know, but I've heard a lot of voters talk about like, oh, Bernie's too old, da, da, da. So there you go. If there's a big fault for Bernie, it's he's too old, but he has track record, at least for principles. And they say that a politician with principles does not last long. So, whatever. Not really trying to show anything per se, but that's all I got to say about that. There's just really shitty candidates. And then there really should be. I feel bad for Bernie that he even has to run again. There's just such shitty candidates, and nobody with enough name recognition or support has put their name in the hat. Like I said, I feel like Bernie wouldn't even run. If there was a better candidate, Bernie wouldn't even run. But there's not. You have the snake Warren, who's a pretend. And then you have everybody else's. Maybe Tulsi. But Tulsi's got some kooky stuff going on. I don't know. Yang had some promise for a minute, but basically he would have to turn into Bernie. Which, he didn't do anyway. So I don't know. I just hopefully Bernie wins. If Bernie wins, it'll usher in a major change for the future. Not necessarily through him, but he will stoke the sort of foundation for that, or build the foundations for that change. If Bernie doesn't make it in, I think we're just in for a bit longer of trudging through the muck, and some more. Whatever contradictions that continue to arise, they'll continue to happen. More and more people will fall through the cracks. You'll have an ever increasing poor population, which will not be highlighted by the curators of our reality. You'll just see more and more homeless people, more and more poor people that just can't make it. And then you'll just be like, oh, what's going on? In the city's falling apart, and then people start moving. I don't know. It's just it's going to be a slow type of thing, you know, and we either look at history and see what has happened in our past, or we don't, and then we just let shit happen and blow up in our face. So I don't know, man. I just don't know anymore. All right, Superfan Chris says, I sometimes feel that Bernie really doesn't want to be president, but instead he's just there to shake things up, etc. You know what? I don't doubt it, because I mean he's old, and it's just like it's I mean it's just a stressful thing to do. So I wish there was a better candidate. You know, who is it? I don't know. Who would even try? Who's even attempted and failed? I don't know. Maybe someday somebody will come out there and run that has a visionary plan for the future, but 2020 is not going to be that time. It's just too soon. But we'll see. Bernie will usher in the change. If he doesn't win, I don't know. It's just too hard to predict. There's too many people with their hands on the levers, things moving around. I don't know who's gonna, you know, what curator of reality is gonna win out in the end. If people are going to start seeing through the BS, how much will, you know, the more that the establishment people, including YouTube and Facebook and those folks, start making noticeable and recognizable change. Like here I am, this Yutz talking about some crap. If you know, I start getting censored and weird stuff starts happening, then you can start seeing like, whoa, there are things that are happening that the curators of perception don't want you knowing about. And that's where things get weird, you know? So I don't know. It takes stuff like this kind of show, you know, we're up to 55 subscribers. So the show is growing a little bit. So tell your friends to tune in. We need to try to grow the following, so that not the following, but like grow the discussion to get more people. And Superfan Chris said, Boyd for president someday. We may have to come up with some kind of running slogan, but we have to see how things shake down with Bernie, with Trump, with the Democratic Party. I don't know, is Bernie going to end up running as an independent if the Democrats try to do some shenanigans again on him? We'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. And then that will set the stage for the next discussion. You know, it's like, well, you know, I don't know. It's like Trump went to Wharton, which is like this, you know, really impressive finance school. But the dude is dumb as a box of rocks. So what does that mean about Wharton? You know what I mean? What does that mean as someone graduated with a degree from Wharton? I don't know. And do you really need that degree from Wharton? Because it's like, oh, well, you don't have any academic like I don't have any accreditations or academic, you know, acknowledgments. So if I were, let's just hypothetically say I were to run for president, I feel like, look, hey, all I got to do is look back at Trump, because Trump really poked the hole in the waterbed. Now it's like, this shit's going to start gushing out, because all you got to do is be like, look, I might not have a degree from Wharton, but that Yutz had a degree and he was a fucking moron. So what's your point? And the degree didn't fucking help that idiot, right? So what's your point? So much for having these degrees. They don't mean dick, right? He's got degrees. He went to Wharton. I mean, I used to look up to that school. To hear that idiot talk is like, God, you know what I mean? It's like, the dude is not smart. He's just not a smart man. And it's crazy how many people are his fans. It's like there's definitely a cult following going on. You know, I'm afraid, man. I'm afraid. I know people said that about Obama, and Obama had a cult following. I'm like, yeah, that might have been true. But Jesus Christ, Trump is just out there with this lunatic fringe kind of 2-day Twitter rant, caps locks. I mean, it's just with his weird tan line, weird thing. It's just like the weirdest presidency. I fear for the country. I really do. And we have a decent chunk, 30 something percent, at least around 30 something percent of people in this country that are part of this weirdo cult. Oh man. And it's like, I don't know. I fear for the future of our nation. So who knows? Michael Weingartner says, honestly, I think is different. It's a cult of personality built around a dysfunctional person. Yes, of course, cult of personality. I know, but how do you break out of a national cult? What happens? I mean, I just don't know. What happens if he doesn't get elected? Is there like a war? Does the boogaloo begin? If so, I mean, I don't know. What does that even mean? What would that even be like? Do you still go to work during the boogaloo? If there was a civil war, who would be fighting who? Is everyone just fighting against Trump people? Will there be some kind of unity? Will there be a 50-50 fracture? Like, I don't know. Part of me just wants to let's just try it out. So if you don't know how to operate a firearm, go figure it out. Join the SRA. Find your local chapter. Folks will teach you how to do that without making you join a local militia or something like that. But anyway, not that the Trump people necessarily will do that, but I mean, even then, they're just full of contradictions. Really, it's a cult of personality, not of issues, not of ideology. It's a cult of the Trump persona. It is the weirdest thing. So weird. I don't get it. I just don't get it. I don't know. I hate to see our nation like this. I feel like, you read history books and how our nation's supposed to act, and this is just silly. This is time. This is the beginning before a historic precedent like war or like major dysfunction in society is coming. So on that note, I think I'm going to put on Seprock Beats. Now, don't forget, tell your people that anyone you know, subscribe to the channel. And, we need to talk about more stuff, get some people that don't necessarily agree with, what's going on or what we're talking about. You know what I mean? Get them to tune in and give their impressions and opinions and whatnot. We had a lot of chats on a lot of activity on the live chat for our one person on Facebook. So check out the YouTube channel, subscribe, like. There's a Patreon. Oh, and also there is Seprock Beats, don't forget. So anyway, tune in. Seprock Beats is what's it called? In the description, there's a link. Buy his album. It's dope. And again, we will be. Oh, I may have to move next week's show. Maybe. We'll see. I'm gonna check out this new jazz spot next Tuesday. So we'll have to see. Dale, I am still using the old computer, but some new technology is in the works. So we'll have to figure out what happens. But until next time, I will bid you farewell and peace out.
Only heard. Never seen, only heard.